into the meat and potatoes of this video, I thought I'd inform you of a couple of things that maybe you didn't know or are looking for updates on. First off, the Yellow Vest protests are still going on. It's going to be a year soon. What a lovely anniversary to have. The Hong Kong protests are getting more violent. Apparently the police there are taking some advice from the French. Apparently Guaido has some rather unsavory connections. Who would have thought? Assange is still in jail, even though I thought his sentence ran out. Chelsea Manning? Oh, I think she's still in jail too. Edward Snowden, still exiled. And now that we've talked about all that fun stuff, let's talk about some other fun stuff. Like the border wall. You know, this big monstrous grift that's doing nothing but taking taxpayers' dollars and destroying the communities and farms there. Okay, maybe that's a little hyperbolic, but there are people's properties who are getting negatively impacted. There are also indigenous communities that are getting severely negatively impacted. It's also affecting the wildlife in the area. But you know what? None of that matters. It doesn't. But you know what does matter, though, is that apparently this wall has some cameras on it. Not all of these cameras are pointing out in the open. You know, on the Mexico side, so they can see who's coming. Many of them are pointing inward. Okay. Towards people's homes. So if you live by the border right now, don't expect any privacy, not even in your own home. But the thing is, who's manning these cameras? Because it's not the United States, not Mexico, also isn't Russia. Could be operating these cameras. Oh well, I guess it's not important. So in the same report that I saw on this, they also explained the concept of a border zone. Border zone is apparently the distance 100 miles from the actual border of a country. So when you hear about surveillance and walling of the border zone, guess what? That also includes just about every major city in America. Like I said before, this wall, I'm not so worried about it keeping people out. I'm more worried about it keeping people in. Or maybe keeping people separate. Another thing I wanted to address, and is really the main point I wanted to talk about in the video, is our illustrious scaremonger-in-chief a couple weeks ago spoke at a rally, and he talked about homelessness. Yeah. And if you pay attention to the way he spoke about homelessness, he said it's the cause of the other party. More donkey fin arguments. What causes homelessness? Well, people don't have a job. Oh, why don't they go to school and get a job? Well, first note on that is, that doesn't seem to be the desire of a lot of Republican voters. Just saying. Most of the hardline conservative types said, oh, I learned how to be this thing and I'm not going to be anything else, so you better provide me with a job. Or prevent the immigrants from taking it from me. How is that capitalism? Yeah. Also, the main point of what causes homelessness is not so much a skill set, but when people have jobs and all of a sudden those businesses decide to go under. because of competition or mismanagement or a myriad of reasons. But this is the very reason why we have social security programs like unemployment, welfare, social security, and so forth. But nobody wants to talk about that. Nobody wants to talk about how the pathology of the rich is to consider you and I as nothing more than tools to be used, and not only to be discarded when they're done with us, but also to be destroyed. Although keep in mind that there are many people that are homeless and are actually working. What was it? Right outside Google in their parking lot, there's a tent city and an RV site that people just decided to make their new home because they couldn't afford to actually have a house anymore or an apartment or anything because they're getting paid so low. Yeah. So there's all that. Homelessness isn't the result of any one particular party. It's the result of rich people preventing the rest of us, or at least trying to prevent the rest of us, from having anything, including a decent wage. And there's another thing to consider too, is that the American dollar doesn't have the same value everywhere in the country. What a dollar can buy me here in New Jersey is pretty different from what a dollar can buy me in Alabama. It's not a huge change. I think it's probably like, what is it? For every dollar I spend here, it's roughly the equivalent of like $1.10 in Alabama or something like that. But still, it's significant. So that's why I'm not all on the hype train of the fight for 15. Realistically, the only fight for 15 I'm interested in is the fight for a 15-hour work week. Because let's face it, the age of automation is upon us. And with everything getting automated, there's no reason why society as a whole should benefit rather than the very few reaping the profits and forcing the rest of us out. You know, the rest of us who built it all in the first place. So minimum wage should be something that's more fluid, that's percentage based, that's based on the location where your job is, so that you can survive, have a home, eat food, electricity, all that stuff in a close enough proximity to your job. If so much of our life is going to depend on our jobs, then our jobs had better shell the fucking money out for us to sustain ourselves and to live comfortably. So yeah, it's not a partisan issue. I mean, sure, people might want to make it a partisan issue, but at the end, it's just another one of those things that comes down to rich people fucking everyone else over.